Hello, and welcome to a reasoned, relevant review. This is not the same as a rant-rave review, because a rant-rave review is impassioned and psychotic, and it's about things that I love, and things that I hate, and things that I love and hate, and things that I have strong feelings about. And often they're not very relevant. They're either very obscure things that no one else on YouTube or BookTube cares about, or they are things that came out years ago or centuries ago and no one's talking about anymore, but I'm talking about them because I love them or hate them. Okay, this is not that kind of a review. This is a review about something that people actually are currently talking about and I don't love or hate, but I have feelings. I feel like I need to talk about them. So, in this case, I will do more relevant, rational reviews or reasonable reviews. I don't know whatever it says in the thing on the title. I will do more of them, but for now, we're going to talk about 4 animated movies. Disney Pixar movies. The most recent ones. Except for Frozen 2, maybe. I don't know. So, we're going to talk about Raya, Onward, Soul, and Luca. Because I guess I have frustration, and that's why I'm going to talk about this today. And I have many frustrations. So, for example, Onward. I feel like I'm the only person who saw that movie. Everyone's like, Onward, what was that? What movie? No one talks about it. Or Luca, people who've seen it love it, but most people are like, Luca, what's that? And I'm like, oh, Disney didn't advertise that movie at all. Raya is very frustrating for many reasons, and Soul is frustrating. Everyone and their uncle is reviewing it, and we'll talk about it. Okay, so we're going to rate these on a scale. We're going to rate these on a scale from least good to best good, most good. None of them are awful. I will just say that ahead of time. None of them are bad movies. But again, as someone who rants and raves about things, I feel like if your movie is just it's okay. That's not what you should be shooting for as a creator. You should never want your audience to be like, yeah, it's okay. No, you should actually enjoy things. You should feel something. Especially with Disney Pixar movies, I'm it should make you feel something. You should have a feeling. So that's where we're going to start. Why the worst movie is the worst movie on the list. It's Raya, the Last Dragon. Raya and the Last Dragon. I felt nothing except frustration. I didn't laugh. I didn't cry. It didn't move me, Bob. And it was frustrating for so many reasons. I will briefly say what each movie's about for people who don't know. Raya and the Last Dragon is the most recent animated Disney movie. It's based on various, I want to say South Asian cultures, and I don't know how spoilery to get. I don't want to get super spoilery, but I will mention things that happen in the end, but not major spoilers. So for all these movies, no major spoilers. Basically, Raya, I don't want to go complicated, but basically her and her family have to guard this dragon jewel thing that once upon a time, 500 years ago, basically banished these dark entities that turn people to stone. And the stone people, this is important, when people get turned to stone, they do this, they're basically statues that are in this certain pose. You can't really tell, but they hold their arms out like this. And I don't know if that's a reference to something in those cultures, but it's cool, I thought. And it's important for later. One of the frustrations. Anyway, her family guards this, her dad guards it because the 5 human nations kind of fight over it. And their nation is in charge of keeping it safe. And all of them kind of fight, but her dad's like, no, we can be together and be Kumadra, which is the unified group of countries. Again, we should just stop fighting. We should get together. Stuff happens. Obviously, there's a fight. The jewel breaks, and each of the 5 nations... Oh, and when it breaks, all those dark entities that were held at bay start coming out again. And there's somebody in each of the 5 nations who has a chunk of the gem. It's a dragon gem, a dragon pearl or something. And Raya, now all alone, orphaned, because her dad, it's not a spoiler, her dad obviously gets turned into a statue. Obviously, obvious things are obvious. She wants to go find the dragon who had this gem to try and basically bring her dad back. Frustration number 1. I'm frustrated by Raya as a character, because a lot of people talk about how it's frustrating that she, like, her whole character arc is about, like, not trusting people because she got betrayed by somebody, but she trusts people really easily, which is true. Like, she's not a terribly compelling character, in my opinion. Like, her arc isn't very interesting. But what frustrated me was her whole reason for going on this quest and getting this dragon is, I want to bring my dad back. And it's like, okay, but your dad, A, wanted to unite all the countries, so that should be on your mind instead of just like an afterthought that happens to occur over the story. And your entire, like, your country's reason for being was to protect this dragon gem. And you messed up and you let it get broken. So, like, that should be a part of her character arc. And again, like, I feel like if you're gonna have the whole, like, I was betrayed thing, you should have something in there where, like, she basically is like, I was betrayed, I can't trust anybody, I was betrayed. Because mentally she's pushing off the fact that she messed up and she, like, failed in her duty to protect the dragon gem. Like, that should be a part of her arc, and it isn't. And there's no part where she goes to find this dragon to be like, you know, I was, like, in charge of this, like, it's my mission. Nope, not important. Much like Frozen, this whole movie felt very empty. I will say, the visuals were gorgeous, and the music slapped. Like, the soundtrack is perfect, beautiful. Like, 10 out of 10 soundtrack, beautiful visuals, all of the, like, cultural stuff is gorgeous. Unfortunately, everything else just felt empty. So that's frustration number one. Raya's character, like, you had the bones of a good character and you kind of didn't do anything with it. Frustration number two, the friggin' dragon, which everyone who talks about this movie will talk about how annoying the dragon is. I did not find her annoying, I felt her frustrating. I guess annoying. Because, A, she, like, her design as a dragon is hideous. She's basically like if My Little Pony and, like, Elsa had a baby and the baby was in a dragon shape, like, that would be the dragon. It's just not interesting, and I've seen people from, I want to say, I don't know if it's Taiwan or Thailand, I don't know what country the dragons are based on, but there's, like, you know, the traditional drawings from that culture, and I've seen people's, like, fan art of what it could have looked like, and I was like, that would be awesome. Why did they make it a weird My Little Pony Elsa-faced dragon? I don't know. But what's frustrating is her, because she can turn into a human sometimes, her human design is awesome. I loved her as a human. She has this really weird, like, kind of snaggletooth face and crazy, like, white but also pearly looking hair, and it's cool, and she kind of stands all crazy. Excellent design. Why did you fail for her dragon design? And then, similarly, a lot of people complain about, like, her voice actress, and it's not her voice actress's fault. Her voice actress did not write those lines. Because half the time, she's basically an off-brand genie from Aladdin, where she tries to be funny and relevant, like, and it's not, it doesn't hit, it's not funny, it's just annoying. But whenever she's talking about something relevant to the story and is halfway serious, I love her voice. It's such a cool, like, kind of scratchy. Like, I love that kind of female voice where it's kind of scratchy and she sounds awesome and she sounds like a dragon. I love it. And so it's so frustrating where I'm like, I don't hate this dragon. I'm just very confused by the choices that were made by the writers and the character designers. Yeah. So that's frustration number two. Speaking of dialogue, the other frustration, and this isn't even frustration, this is straight out, like, I hate it, is the hyper-modern dialogue. And I think it's like, there's a line that you can do in fantasy movies where it's okay to have modern dialogue. Because, hello, we speak modernly. Tangled does a good job, and Princess Bride does a good job, where they have, like, modern speech patterns and stuff, but you don't really notice. It just fits. Whereas in Raya, specifically when Raya is talking with the other girl and doing narration, it just sounds so much like, I'm a modern, like, woman talking like a modern woman, and it takes you out of the story. Especially, oh my gosh, especially in the opening narration, it's like a dystopian-ish world, and she's like, I know what you're thinking, like a dystopian world, like, who is this person? And I was like, why do you have those tropes in your fantasy setting? Like, that's really weird that you would basically be referencing a modern, like, story trope. Unlike Entangled, where you have Eugene and he's like, this is a story of the day I died. But don't worry, it's a good story. Which, like, it still sounds like somebody telling you a story. It's not like, this is a dystopian genre that you're all watching and I know what you're thinking. It's like, no, like, I'm telling you a story. I don't know how to describe it. It's just really frustrating and it really takes you out of the movie. Okay, that's 3 frustrations. Fourth frustration, it's overstuffed. Like, she has the thing where she's going to the 5 nations, and because there's so much going on, you don't really care about any of the characters. I feel like this whole movie should have been a miniseries, and maybe it could have worked. But as it was, I was like, okay, like, I kind of like a couple of the characters, but I don't really feel anything towards any of them. Yeah, it's not really... And there's certain scenes that are supposed to be poignant where they talk about, you know, my family got turned into statues, or it's, like, heavily implied that this guy's family got turned into statues, but it doesn't make you feel anything. You're just like, okay. Frustration, part of that is the friggin', let's just call it what it is, boss baby and monkeys. Like, I don't know why that character was in the movie. I hate it. I forget what reviewer was pointing out that basically that baby, with its stupidly dumb, like, ninja moves, could have just solved all the problems, and I just hate it. Like, much like the trolls in Frozen that I just hate, I hated that baby. And then, I don't want to say anything about the ending. A lot of people have, like, issues with the way the ending was, and I was like, I don't really mind it too much. Like, it was what it was. It was decent. Again, for a movie where I felt nothing about any of the characters, it was a decent ending. Except, every time the weird dark entities turn somebody into a statue, the statues stand with their hands out. I can't show you with the camera, but it's basically like they're holding something towards somebody, like offering something. And there's a certain part where certain characters get turned into statues, and they don't face like that. They're, like, holding on to each other instead. And I'm like, this whole scene, the whole reason for this particular scene is that certain characters are basically giving something to another person. And it would be really on point if all of those characters all stood offering their hands toward this person, but they don't. They're all holding on to each other. And it makes 0 sense, and it flies in the face of the theme. And I'm just like, Disney... And so that's my thing about Raya. It's not a bad movie. It's just so frustrating in its choices. Like, so frustrating in why they chose to do certain things and not other things. And it's just like, I felt nothing. Okay, so this is going to be a long review. I'm sorry. Okay, you can skip. I should probably put, like, the timestamps. Okay, 13 minutes. Next up, we have the 3rd worst movie, which is going to blow everyone's minds and get me, like, lynched. Soul. Soul is not as good as Onward and Luca, and let me explain before you all murder me. I know that every other reviewer on the entire planet, like, lost their minds over Soul. I just didn't feel it. I didn't feel anything watching that movie. And again, I liked the idea, I liked the premise, I liked the cool, abstract, weird, The Great Before. I'm not even opposed to a weird body swap shenanigans. But I have some problems with the movie. And again, it could be summarized as I felt nothing. Nothing. Like, no part of that movie made me, like, tear up or be like, aw, or laugh. I mean, I laughed a little bit. Like, there was some funny stuff, but not, like, I don't know. And I don't know if it's, like, again, okay, like, I'm not one of those people who's, like, really into New York. So that might be, like, a lot of people are like, New York. And I'm like, I visited there once. Not my kind of thing. And again, that was, like, one of the things that I really wish they'd spent more time in the weird Great Before type stuff, but a lot of it was in New York, which makes sense, given the premise and the themes. It definitely makes sense. But I guess I am going to have a few spoilers, but I feel like everyone knows already. But if you want to skip to the next part, look in the description and I'll put the timestamps of each talking about thing. Okay. So many frustrations with this movie. So, I know that the whole point of this movie is, like, the point of life is to live it. And as my younger brother was saying, he was like, the reason I didn't think anything about this movie was because I've seen that done, like, a million billion times in, like, anime and other stories. And the fact that that's like mind-blowing for American movies is just like, okay, like it's not really an interesting theme. It's kind of an obvious theme. And again, as somebody who loves slice of life, I'm like, yeah. And cozies and cottagecore. I'm just like, everyday life. Yep. And I'll just say, like, again, like, it's a nice theme. And it could have been done well, I think. But, I didn't really care about either character. Joe was okay. But he should have been a worse person. And I know that sounds weird. I feel like he should have been a worse person. 22, 1000% did not care about. I did not care about her, did not like her as a character, did not understand or care about her plight. I thought the whole, like, oh, everyone's so mean to me, all my teachers are mean, was like, I don't know. Like, as somebody who's been a teacher, from a family of teachers, the whole, like, oh, if you're just, like, you just reach out to them. It's like, no, some students are jerks and don't want to learn. And it is not your job to be a, like, miracle worker and get them to learn. If you can do that, great. But people have free will and they can choose not to. And 22 kind of struck me as that kind of, like, she doesn't want to go to Earth. And I don't know. I just didn't care about her. And, yeah. But what really annoys me, I guess, is this is the spoilers, I thought that Joe should have died at the end. I thought that would have been way more satisfying, because he, like, fulfilled his, like, mission in life, because he lived it, and it was good, and he touched people, and was happy. But again, I feel like you probably would have had to have more. I feel like you'd have to have had a scene in the, like, Hall of Whatever Your Life Is, where, like, it shows him having nice little incidental life things. I don't know. It was really weird. Anyway, finally, I think the thing that, like, most confused me is, okay, so you have the concept of the zone. If you haven't seen the movie, basically, if you're really into something, like you love playing the piano, or you love, I don't know, anything, and you get in the zone, it's basically, there's a place in the Great Before where you can go and look at those souls, like, experiencing those things. And it's really cool. But if you become too obsessed with that, basically you, like, sink down into this weird sand, and it, like, consumes you, basically, and you become this weird monster that just kind of, like, plows around and doesn't think about anything anymore. And it's really interesting. A really interesting concept. I was like, more of this, please. More of this, please. And it does come up at the end, but it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. Usually Pixar is so good with their rules and their storytelling, because what happens is, like, 22 gets consumed by one of those things, and it's when she has her little, like, existential crisis about people being mean to her and yelling at her because she's a bad student. And Joe, like, breaks in and helps her, and it just didn't make sense, because I was like, she's not in the zone. She's not consumed by anything other than, like, loathing and self-hatred, which isn't the same thing. That's not how that happens. Like, you'd establish this rule of how you get in the zone and then become one of those things, and that she never did. I thought there was going to be, like, when it introduced that, I was like, oh, is Joe going to, like, play his concert and then, like, become obsessed with it, because he kind of already is, and, like, get in the zone and, like, basically, like, reject his teaching job and maybe, like, get in the weird zone, and she has to help him by, like, making him realize something about life? I don't know. But it was just odd. It just didn't feel... It wasn't up to Pixar's... And that's the thing, is every other reviewer is like, it's one of Pixar's best movies, and it's like, really? I don't think it's, like, at all up to Pixar's regular snuff. And again, it's not a bad movie. It's just like, it was okay. That was my feeling. That's all I felt. Like, watching it, I was like, it was okay. That's it. I didn't feel any other emotion. Yeah. I didn't cry. I didn't feel anything for 22. I was just, like, at the end of the movie, I was like, okay, I guess that was a movie. Yeah. So, I felt nothing. Alright, moving on to the third from the top, so the second best, Onward. I'm as shocked as the rest of you. So, most people have never seen Onward, apparently, or have even heard of it. It is essentially a road trip movie. Actually, it is 100% a road trip movie, complete with a scene where you, like, knock over the bikes of bikers, because you gotta in a road trip movie. It is basically it's like a magical world where everyone's like an elf or a centaur or a pixie or whatever. It's all magical creatures. But at some point, they like decided magic was too hard, so they just used technology. And I will say the world building makes no sense whatsoever. Like, absolutely makes no sense. And I know, as mean as I was to Soul just a second ago, it's like a different kind of thing where I guess this premise doesn't make sense, whereas the premise of Soul made sense, but they had a very particular little here's how you get in the zone, and it seemed so cool and didn't deliver, whereas this whole world didn't seem very cool, so I'm kind of okay with it being lame. If that makes sense? I guess Soul strived for more and they failed. They flew too close to the sun. Yeah, Soul flew too close to the sun, whereas Onward was like, I'm just gonna derp around on the ground, and so I don't mind if it trips. If that makes sense. Yes. Anyway, but it's a road trip movie. Basically, these two elves, I don't know, elf brothers, their dad died when they were just little. Like, the older brother, I think, was like 3 or something, and the little brother was like a baby. Their dad died, and so the main character boy, he's like 16, I think, and he's never met his dad, really, and I forget, his dad like left him a magic staff and a spell, where on his 16th birthday, he can cast this spell to bring his dad back for one day and be with him. And his dad used to like dabble in magic and stuff, because again, nobody really does that anymore because it's too hard. And so this is the premise, it's not spoilers yet. He casts the spell, but he gets interrupted during it, and so he only brings back half of his dad, aka like just the legs. So it has some like Weekend at Bernie's vibes, kind of, with like half some legs, and like, yeah. And so they, the two brothers, and the older brother is like really into magic, he just can't cast any of it, and he has a stupid car and van, and like, he's kind of a deadbeat, it's great, he's adorable. And he knows all about magic, and he's like, okay, if we get this like Phoenix gem to put in the staff, we can like finish the spell and meet Dad. So we had to go on a quest, oh my gosh, go on a quest, aka a road trip, to get this like Phoenix gem. Oh, and the little brother has like this list of things he wants to like do with his dad and talk to his dad about. They never got to do with his dad. And the brothers go on their quest. Meanwhile, their mom, I don't think she knows what's happening, but she like has to go find them and has her own adventure along the way. Okay, it is 1000% paint by numbers road trip movie, which again, it's not trying to be great. It's just trying to like be a very little movie. It's very short. It's 1 day long. And yet, it made me feel something. It made me cry. Yes, it like had the Pixar tears. Here's the spoilers. Because, the whole time they're doing this stuff, like, he has this little, like, list of things he wants to do with his dad, and events occur where basically one of them has to deal with this big, giant problem while their dad is there, and the younger brother realizes that, like, all the stuff he wanted... Oh, there's also a really important plot point where the older brother, when their dad was, like, dying in the hospital, he wanted to say goodbye to him, but he was, like, little and, like, scared of all the tubes and stuff, so he, like, didn't say goodbye to his dad. This is where the friggin' tears come. And so the stuff happens. Last, the end of the movie, third act, and the younger brother basically realizes that, like, all the things on his list, like, get checked off by, like, what he did with his brother, because his older brother's actually always been there for him, and here's the friggin' Pixar tears while I'm talking about the movie. And so he goes to deal with the problem, and he lets his older brother, like, say goodbye to their dad. And I was like, this is, like, unexpected? I'm crying at this stupid road trip movie? What the frig? And that was, like... And that's what I think is so funny about how no one saw Onward and everyone saw Soul and, like, loses their mind over it, is, like, if you think about it, both movies are about, like, death and, like, experiencing life. But Onward, for being a stupid little movie... manages to be like, hey, all those little things you want to do, you've always been doing them. And, like, yeah, it's okay to let go of your dad and let your brother say goodbye to him. Whereas Soul was like... And so many reviewers are like, it's really deep, it's about life and death. And I'm like, okay, but, like, what is it saying about them? The point of life is to live it. No, duh? I feel bad saying that, but, like, I just felt nothing. I felt nothing about that movie. I don't know. Maybe there's something wrong with me. Anyway, Onward made me cry. in the theater, and apparently now. So yeah. And finally, Luca, the last movie, the best of the four. I will say, and again, I know this is like awful, it's not a great movie, but it was a good movie. Unlike Raya, which was okay, and Soul, which was like, okay, and Onward, which was like a deeply flawed, but like tear-inducing movie, Luca was like actually a good movie. And I mean, Onward is actually a good movie too. It's just kind of, it's okay. Like, it was good. Like, I cried and I laughed. But it was kind of deeply flawed in terms of its premise and world building. Luca was very cute. That is like my main takeaway of Luca. It's like, it is very cute. If you don't know what it is, because Disney decided to not advertise it at all, it's basically a like typical like friends having a summer on an Italian island, but they're like fish people where they're like sea monsters. So when they're in the ocean, they have like scales and scaly hair and a long tail, but when they get on dry land or if they dry out, they look like humans. And it's very cute. So basically there is Luca and Alberto. Alberto is a perfect human creature. He's so cute. Oh my goodness. Okay, so Luca has like kind of overprotective parents who are like, don't go on land, like they'll get harpooned, don't do it. But he is very, I guess, curious. He wants to know about the world. There's many scenes where it's shown that he's kind of like inventive and understands how things work. And so he wants to go and learn about the human world. But he's a good boy. He's a good boy. He doesn't want to go. He's so cute. He has to go like shepherd his little like fish flock. But Alberto like lives alone in this tower, like on this little tiny island in the bay, and totally takes human stuff all the time. And it's just like, whatever, I'm about the human world. Like, yeah, I've been there lots of times. And he's so cute, and like, he has a little pompadour, and he's like way overconfident. And like, there's a part where they're looking at the night sky, and Luca doesn't, he's like never seen the sky. He's like, what are those? And Alberto's like, oh, those are anchovies, and there's like a really big fish that protects all of them. I touched it once. I don't know, it felt like a fish. He's so cute. Like, that is the thing about this movie is it made me feel something, and that feeling was like squee, like if that's a feeling. Like, so cute, and just like the whole time I was like grinning. Yeah, it's very cute. And then basically, long story, weirdly, it's so funny because like everyone's like, this is a very simple story. I'm like, it is a very simple story, but it's also kind of like weirdly complicated. Where basically the two fish boys want a Vespa, and the way to get that Vespa, there's this weird like triathlon thing for kids in the town. They go to the town, by the way, to get the Vespa. And they're so cute because they like don't understand anything. They're like, Mr. Vespa. It's like some random guy riding a Vespa, and like it's just cute. And so they enroll with a human in this race, but also there's like a bounty on sea monsters in this town, so they can't let anybody see them. And even if like they get a little bit wet, they turn like scaly on that part that got wet. So it's like danger. And also they know nothing about humans because Alberto is like full of it. And so many things I liked about this movie. So one thing, okay, let's compare and contrast. I've noticed, this is a weird thing that no one else cares about, but I care about. I've noticed in a lot of Disney movies, all of the side characters are like hyper normal looking. Like they are all, like in Raya and in Tangled and in Moana, all the side characters are just very normal body shape. And it's so boring. Whereas in Luca, you have like really fat people and really big people and like skinny people and round people. And I don't know. And all the little kids have little knobby knees. It's very stylized. And actually it's weird because like at first I didn't care for the way the kids looked, that style, but the rest of it I was just like, and it grew on me obviously. But yeah, I was like, all the side characters are very stylized and I really like it. I like different, what do you call them? Silhouettes. That's a thing in animation. You're supposed to have different silhouettes, and Disney's kind of given up on that, but Pixar still cares. Yeah. So that's something I liked. The visuals are gorgeous. It's just beautiful and sunny and like it pops. It's beautiful. So I didn't like everything. The villain was kind of weird. I was just like, this is odd. And his little minions, like, they're kind of thing where like, why are they his minions? Why do they put up with this? And at the end of the movie, they don't put up with it. And I'm like, okay, but nothing actually changed. Like, I feel like he's been doing this to them for years, so why the sudden change? It was weird. I love the dad human. The girl's dad. Love him. deeply. There was like a subplot with like Luca's parents that was meh. Like, it was kind of funny at first. Like, they're trying to find Luca and they don't know what he looks like as a human, so it leads to some shenanigans, which I liked. But I felt like at the end of the movie, I guess the third act had some issues with me. Again, I don't want to spoil anything because this was actually a likable movie. I will just say that it felt too easy. Like, all of the people came around way too easy. And I will say, there was like your typical like animated movie third act breakup, but it was actually mostly good. Like, I was like, oh, like, it actually was shocking because I thought, you see it coming, and I thought a certain thing would happen, but then like a different thing happened and I was like, oh my goodness. Like, yeah. Which again was repaired a little too easily. I thought there should have been some more time spent on that, but the ultimate end of that being repaired was very cute. Yeah, the whole movie was very cute. So yeah, even though I have some issues with the third act being not, like, it was lacking something, I guess. And that's the thing, I don't quite know what it was lacking, but it was lacking, and I was like, frustrating. But overall, it was very cute. A lot of people have said it's like a Ghibli movie. It is. It's just very gentle and cute, and like nothing happens in it, which is great. Like, nothing needs to happen in it. Yeah, it was just very adorable. Fish boys. Alberto. I don't know, it felt like a fish. He's so cute. Okay, so that's my opinion on those 4 Disney movies. I hope I didn't spoil them too much. I kind of totally spoiled Onward. I'm sorry. But anyway, I'll put the timestamps in the descriptions and you can go back and look at the movies you want. I don't know. Okay, but that was my relevant, rational, reasonable review. Until next time, bye-bye.